Have you ever wondered why sharing good news, something you're genuinely excited about, can sometimes just completely backfire? Like, instead of excitement, you get anger? Well, today we're going to dig into that exact question, and we're going to do it by looking at an ancient story from the book of Acts that honestly reveals some timeless truths about human psychology and where conflict really comes from.
So yeah, why does good news sometimes provoke hatred? To get to the bottom of this, we're going to follow the apostles Paul and Barnabas. They go on this journey where their message of hope starts out great, but then it sparks curiosity, which then turns into jealousy, and finally, into outright persecution. Let's break down how it all unfolds.
Okay, so our story kicks off in a place called Pisidian Antioch. This is during Paul's very first missionary journey, and it's where this message of hope really starts to catch fire. And, as we'll see, it's also where the first seeds of conflict get planted.
Just to give you some context, this is all going down around 47 AD. The ascension of Jesus had only happened about 14 years before this. So we're not talking about some ancient, dusty history to them. This was all very recent, very raw, which just adds to the impact of what's about to happen. So when Paul first gets up to speak in the local synagogue, the reaction is amazing. I mean, it's incredibly positive. Even the established religious leaders are listening, they're open, they're curious. You honestly couldn't ask for a better start. But then, in the span of just 1 week, everything completely flips. The first Sabbath, you've got some healthy curiosity. By the next Sabbath, almost the whole city shows up to hear them speak. And here's the crazy irony. It's this massive, overwhelming success that becomes the exact trigger for all the hostility.
So what happened, right? Why did things turn so sour so fast? Well, the analysis suggests the root cause wasn't really the message itself. It was a universal human emotion that was just lying there, dormant: pride.
At the very heart of this conflict, and let's be honest, so many others, is pride. It's that internal feeling of self-importance, that little voice that says, "I'm better than you," or "Who are you to tell me anything?" That's the fertile ground where trouble just loves to grow.
And here's the paradox, the part that's really counterintuitive. This kind of dangerous pride, it often doesn't bubble up from hardship. It comes from blessing. When we're doing well, when we're successful and comfortable, it's surprisingly easy to start feeling self-sufficient, to forget humility, and to let that pride take root. Okay, so you've got this pride just simmering under the surface. But what makes it actually explode into open conflict? Well, it needs a spark, right? A catalyst. And that spark was jealousy. This lays out a really clear and kind of scary chain reaction. See how it works? It starts with blessing, which can lead to pride. That pride, when it sees someone else having even greater success, ignites into jealousy. And jealousy, well, jealousy demands action. And that action is slander and persecution. And the text is crystal clear about this tipping point. For the established religious leaders, seeing the entire city, the massive crowds, flocking to hear these newcomers instead of them, that was the moment. That's when their pride curdled into this consuming jealousy. Their status felt threatened. And this jealousy wasn't just some internal feeling they kept to themselves. Oh no, it became a strategy. They started by publicly trashing Paul's message, then they moved on to slander. Then they started stirring up the influential people in the city against them. It was a full-on, coordinated campaign that, in the end, actually succeeded in getting the apostles kicked out of the region entirely. So they're forced out of Antioch. You'd think maybe they'd take a break, but Paul and Barnabas don't give up. They just start a new and incredibly difficult journey to their next stop, a city called Iconium. And we're not talking about a short walk down the road. They had to travel 150 kilometers. That's nearly 100 miles, and they had to do it on foot. I mean, just picture that for a second. Walking for days and days across these huge open plains, probably with no money, having to rely completely on the kindness of strangers, that journey itself just shows their incredible commitment, even after being rejected so harshly. And when they finally get to Iconium, what do they find? The exact same pattern of opposition. This points to something deeper about the nature of that opposition. It's rooted in 2 really old concepts. Diabolos, the Greek word for the slanderer, the one who uses lies to divide people, and Satan, the Hebrew word for the obstructor, the one who just stands in the way to block any good progress. So, let's take a breath. We've seen pride, jealousy, slander, persecution. It's a lot of negativity. In the face of all of this relentless opposition, where's the hope in this story? Where's the good news? And the answer is so powerful because it's not where you'd expect to find it. The hope isn't in Paul and Barnabas making some dramatic escape. No, the story pivots. It circles right back to those brand new believers they had to leave behind in Antioch, who are now facing all that persecution without their teachers. And this, right here, this is the emotional heart of the entire story. In the middle of all this turmoil, after their leaders were publicly shamed and kicked out, you'd expect them to be scared, right? Or in despair? But that's not what the text says. Instead, it says these new believers were filled with joy and the Holy Spirit. And that leaves us with this huge, profound question that the whole analysis has been building towards. It's one thing to feel happy when things are going great, but what does it take to find a deep, resilient joy even when the world around you seems to be completely falling apart? That's the challenge, and really the hope that this story leaves us with.